Welcome to the Next Step Recovery podcast. We call this more than recovery because addiction is so much more than just getting clean from our addictions, our strongholds. It's really finding our purpose in life, and that's what we're here for each and every day. I like to say that we have three purposes here at the Next Step Recovery podcast. The first purpose is to encourage people, to encourage those who are struggling in their addiction or just in life. It doesn't have to be an addiction, it could be anything. So we want to encourage you. Number two, we want to educate you. We want to help you help other people. We want to help you help others. And then finally, we want to expand our reach. We want to expand our impact. We want to expand our partners. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to a great show. Hey, as we start our conversation today, I want to start with a great big thank you to so many people who support Next Step and the work of Next Step and the men and the families of Next Step. We have so many people behind the scenes who do so many things, people who pray for us, people who support us financially, people who volunteer, just so many aspects and so many intricacies that bring the ministry together so we can support and help men and their families. And one of those people is my good friend here today, Kevin Watson. And as I get into our conversation today with Kevin brings a lot of things to the table for me. He's a good friend of mine. I've known Kevin for years. Kevin comes from a background of some addiction and some impact on his family and in his life. And he also works with my son. So I had to get permission from my son today to let him come over here and do this. So I appreciate that. But there's just a lot of things that Kevin brings to the table for me. Yesterday, I was in court with one of our men, and it was a bond hearing over of an issue that... Anyway, it was very complicated. I won't go into the details, but a lot of times these men are facing so many things when they come into our program. It's just unbelievable the challenges that they have. And a lot of programs will require the men or ladies, if it's a ladies program, that before they come into their program, that they have those issues resolved. And we don't do that. We invite them into the program and we help them resolve those issues. So we spend a lot of time in court, a lot of time with judges and lawyers. But I say all that because it takes a lot of heavy lifting to do what we do. And without people like Kevin and just different people, we just can't do it. But Kevin brings a whole lot to the table for me today. And so I want to really get into our conversation. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time just rambling. I want to get into this conversation with Kevin as one of our partners financially, prayerfully, as a friend. And so I believe that I got some questions for you, Kevin, that we sent to you the other day.
Yes.
And I'm going to get to those questions here. And I hope I don't distract you too much with my page turning.
You're good.
Kevin, just go ahead and just say hello. Tell us who you are, I kind of talked about a little bit about your family, your wife, kids, all that good stuff.
Well, I'm Kevin Watson, and first of all, thank you, Todd, for inviting me to speak here today. I appreciate your ministry and our friendship. I've known you a long time, and I've watched you grow yourself in ministry, and you've been a great help to me and my family, and I'm glad God brought us together. And even in the struggle of addictions, God can bring life friendships into that situation. And so I'm so thankful God brought us together as friends and family, and we're like family. And you've been a great help to me and my family, and your ministry has been a great help. So anything I can do to help here and would be just something I'd love to do here. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it was right on this couch right here that Kevin and I think we got up and we were high-fiving in front of the TV behind us on the wall the night that the Bulldogs won that national championship. National championship against Alabama. We were up here high-fiving and having a great time. Yes. So, but Kevin, I want you to share a little bit with the audience and with our friends out there of how you ended up kind of where you were a few years ago in addiction and some struggles you were having, how it was affecting your marriage and your relationships, how your church life and all of those things.
Yeah, well, if you go back to the beginning, I don't want to spend too much time in the beginning. I grew up in a home where we were, I guess for the world standards, normal people. My mother and father, never was around drugs a whole lot, but alcohol was what was the main. It is a drug. Alcohol is a drug as well. So alcohol was just on top of the list, a priority in my family's life. When we had get-togethers, they drank. When we went on vacation, they drank alcohol. When I was sitting at the table, I never forget, on vacations in Panama City, they would get me a ginger ale, so I would look like I'm out drinking alcohol with them. They wanted me to be a part of that as a young person. I love my mom and dad. They both passed away now. But as I look back, a lot of that started because of their alcoholism themselves. Now, I'm not given as a crutch, but if you go back, my dad gave me sips of alcohol many times as a 10-year-old, 9-10 years old. And I was thinking about this meeting today. I was thinking back that my dad actually got me drunk at 11 years old, and my sister was 14.
Wow.
And we were sitting in the kitchen. It's a vivid memory I have with my dad. And side note, my dad passed away with leukemia, and I was 13. He was 42. So my dad was a good person, but he loved to drink, and he didn't mind giving us alcohol. He thought it was funny, and I never forget getting drunk for the first time with my dad. And I think that's what took me down a long, dark road after just thinking alcohol and partying was what my dad did. It's what my mom always did. It's just what life is all about, right? Is to go out and have a good time and just live it up. So long story short, to me, alcohol was my gateway. Whenever Kevin puts alcohol into his body, it's game on. It was whatever was there for the taking, I was ready. People don't think alcohol is a problem as like they do other big drugs, right? Alcohol will destroy your life, and it's destroying families. In a lot of Christian homes where people believe it's okay to have a drink, it's not a big deal, blah, blah, blah. But you never know when your child would take their first drink.
Right.
Now, my parents they wouldn't say that. They gave me alcohol. But you may be a Christian today thinking it's okay for me to have a little alcohol. The Bible doesn't say I can't drink, and then your child sees that, they take their first sip, and that opens the door up to a lifelong addiction struggle in their life. So that's where all that began. And then as just grew, it went from alcohol to, obviously, like most people, goes from alcohol to marijuana, from marijuana to cocaine to methamphetamines to crack cocaine. And it just goes, it went on and on and on. So that's where my history began. And then as I got married, I could go on and on. When I got married, I brought my addictions into my marriage, thinking my wife was going to be that was my godsend. That was finally a woman that would actually marry me, first of all, that would actually have something to do with me and with my baggage. And she did, and we got married, and I thought, this is where I'm going to change. Finally.
Lynn will change me. Lynn will change
exactly.
me.
And she thought she could change. Ladies, don't think you can change your husbands or your boyfriends out there, because only God can do that. So, but she thought she could do that too, and it didn't work. So wasn't long after that, I was still in my drug addiction, got arrested. I've been arrested many times in my life. But by the grace of God, I've never been in prison, Todd. I never wound up in jail for a long period of time. But that's my story. By the grace of God, there's many out there whose story is not the same. They've been in prison. Yeah. God has saved me from that for some reason. I don't know. Maybe because I can sit here today and tell you my story. And then just, facing some very big problems with law enforcement. Thought I was going to go to prison. God, I got saved, gave my life to Jesus Christ. That's where the starting point began, real change in my life, and everything changed from there. It's been a long process, and I know we'll talk about that more after in just a few minutes. But That was when my marriage was over. I thought my family, it was over. I thought it was the end until I gave my life to Christ. And then things really began to change, but it's really a lot of ups and downs even since then.
Yeah, even after you.
Yes.
So one of the things we like to think sometimes as parents of an addict or the spouse of an addict, that if they could just come to Jesus, they'll get fixed.
Right.
And they may come to Jesus, but they usually don't get fixed right away.
That's right. Because
the habits they've learned and the way the brain has been trained doesn't just transform. The renewing of the mind is a process.
That's right.
I often say, just because I get saved, just because I come to Jesus Christ, my brown eyes don't turn blue. They're still brown. And so,
exactly right.
Yeah, so it's a process. And a lot of times, even after we get saved, Kevin, because after you got saved and we're in church and walking with the Lord, you still had some struggles, didn't you?
I did. That's just the only way I knew how to live. I mean, you come from living that way from the time you're 11.
Right.
And then now I'm in my 30s when I get saved. I mean, I'm not going to just be a what would you call a super Christian day one. Obviously, none of us are, even today. But I remember telling my wife about 6 months after I got saved, and I was hearing about what the Bible was all about, and I loved every minute of it. But I came home one day and I said, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I can't live this way. This is scary. I mean, I've got to be, always do good. Or I thought, I had to be I used to call people goody two shoes. They a goody two shoe, they go to church, right? I thought, Kevin, I can't be a goody two shoe. That's just not me. I'm the wild, crazy Kevin. I'm not a goody two. So
you're still wild and crazy.
Yes, I am. So you can be saved and a Christian and still have a lot of fun. Okay, so don't think it's because you give your life to the Lord. Right. Fun is over. It's not. That's where
I hang out with Kevin a lot. I know he's still wild and crazy, and he does not miss a meal. I can tell you that right now.
That's right. So yes, but it took a lot of, and we'll talk about that more as well. It just took a lot, and my wife could tell you too. It's been hard over the years. Right. It has not been easy. But by the grace of God, we're here today, and it's still not easy. No. There's still things that have to be dealt with at times. But
you're human,
right? But it's easier today than it was.
I always say, let's get better today than we were yesterday.
That's right. Yeah.
And let's look to get better tomorrow than we were today. That's my goal. My goal is not perfection. The Bible says it's perfecting, it's maturing. Right. Let's be better today than we were yesterday. Yes. And a lot of times in the life of an addict, he's trying to fix everything that a life of destruction has cost him. He wants to fix it all in the day, and that's just not going to happen. Right. So, and with that said, Kevin, what's it cost you? What are some of the things that addiction cost you?
Well, in the beginning, it took away my identity of who I really was. I became, in my town where I grew up, it became, when my name was mentioned, people would think, well, he's a crackhead.
Right.
Oh, he's a meth head. So my identity was stolen. I was not the person I thought I was. It turned, it's fun for a season, right? The Bible teaches that. I could talk about it for a while, all the fun I had when I was partying and drinking and doing drugs. There was a season of that. But man, over time, it begins to steal everything from once you're addicted and you think, okay, now I'm done with this. Well, it's too late.
Right.
You're already in the snare of addiction. And it stole away my identity. It stole away time, a lot of time wasted, I didn't go there. Like I said, I wasn't in prison. I was arrested several, but I got out. That's another story. I was enabled a lot in my addictions. I was enabled a lot, but lots of money, obviously, wasting time, money. I've lost jobs. Like I said, I didn't lose my family. I did lose my mother from alcoholism, but so a lot of heartache, a lot of pain. It's cost me a lot. There's other people that could sit here and say it's cost them a lot more.
Right.
But by the grace of God, I didn't lose. I should have. But because of God's grace, I was able not to go that far.
Yeah, one of the things that I say often, I believe there's 4 things that most people really want their freedom that's important to them. Freedom around these issues are important. Those things are, number 1, time. And addiction steals your time.
It does. Yeah.
Number 2 is finances, and addiction steals your finances. And number 3 is relationships, and addiction steals your relationships.
Yes.
And then number 4 is purpose. And addiction steals it steals your purpose, and it robs you of those things. And I tell our guys often, stop giving those things away. Stop giving those things away in your addiction.
That's right.
So with that said, Kevin, so how many times did you get clean?
Oh man, I would go in cycles, Right. There was a time, probably a few years after I was saved, I started really getting involved in my church, and because God called me to use my gift, and I was able to speak and had a gift of speaking. Don't have a whole lot of gifts, but that was one I believe God gave me, and began to use my speaking ability to preach the word and teach Sunday school in that church I was in, and I was clean for several years. I don't remember. I don't count a date or nothing like that, but it was several years when I was clean. And over time, as believers, sometimes we begin to get complacent, right? And as addicts,
all of us. And
I hate to call myself, I don't say an addict, but as a person who has that struggle with addiction, as a believer, gets complacent, it's a very dangerous place to be for people that struggle with addictions like I do, because our struggle is more. There's so many more consequences when we go back to our addictions, because our spiral is fast and downhill, and is very, very fast. It just happens quickly. We could lose everything just like that. So I got in an accident, and I got hurt, and wasn't a bad accident, but I had neck pain. So I go to the doctor, and he gives me, I didn't go in there and tell him I was an addict. I never, and pills wasn't never my thing anyway. So I go into the doctor. He gives me tramadol. I never even heard of it, Todd. And I took it for pain, and I thought, well, this helps. And not only did it help, I kind of got a good feeling off of it.
Right.
Because I'm an addict. I always looked for a bit different feeling. It's weird, a better feeling, make me happier, or give me more energy or something like that. And then, so with an addict, the way I was, and the doctor prescription says take 2, well, I decided to take 4, and then
if 2 is good, 4's got to be great.
4's got to be much better, right? And then after 4 doesn't work anymore, I'll take 5 or 6, and then it went on from there and there. And then obviously my wife caught on to it quickly. She's a nurse and RN, and she said, okay, you got to stop getting them pills. You can't take them anymore. But after, it was too late. It was too late. I was already addicted. Then I began to cross the line and try to purchase pills on the streets. Started doing that through the job I was working at. I had the freedom to go out and do that, and it went downhill fast.
Yeah. And I remember we had a conversation a couple of years ago, been more than a couple of years ago. We had a conversation about what was the best thing for Kevin work-wise, and to maybe get another job where he didn't have the freedom to do that. And you did that.
Yes.
And then we also started talking about purpose, right? Kevin, what's God calling you to do? And you and I, you and Lynn and Cecilia had a real good conversation at Cracker Barrel one night.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I challenged you. I said, get in Bible college.
And I did.
Get in an online. You're working, you got to support your family, but let's start chasing your purpose, because God has gifted you with the ability to speak and to preach. Kevin is a tremendous, if you ever want somebody to come preach at your church, this guy can do it. And he's very, very good. And so I said, let's start chasing your purpose. Now you can chase your purpose and still work for State Farm.
That's right.
You can chase your purpose and still work for
whoever,
drive a truck.
Freightliner.
You can chase your purpose, and your purpose doesn't necessarily have to be your job. It could translate to that, but so I said, Kevin, let's start chasing your purpose. And that translates from getting clean, because what happens is so many addicts get clean, Get clean. And I ask often our guys, how many times have you gotten clean? 10 times, 20 times, right? But why can't you stay clean? And that's the issue, because getting clean is a goal, staying clean is a value. I've got to go from goals to values.
Yeah.
And when it becomes important to me, because I'm chasing my purpose and I'm not chasing the next pill,
right,
that changes things. It's a head game, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's a head game.
I was just thinking, and I used to never use the pros and cons list, but it's not a bad idea with addiction. You want to list out some pros and cons?
Yeah, right.
Hey, list them out. I promise you, there's going to be many more cons than pros. There just is. I mean, and I know you think, well, that's not nothing profound there. Well,
doesn't have to be complicated.
Do you want to lose your family or not? Do you want to lose your job or not? Do you want to live under a bridge or not? Do you want to die or not? It's pretty simple. I mean, it's simple but profound to think that this is your choice.
Right.
And you have to choose. You just have to choose every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Key. Every day when I get up,
Yes.
I choose. I got to do better today.
Right.
I'm better today than I was yesterday.
Right. You have to. And you have to choose that. And obviously, with God's help, I know we'll talk about that more. But even then, it's still a choice you have to make. God's not going to come into your mind, or you obviously want to put him in your mind. But when you're faced with that choice, when nobody's around,
right,
that's when the rubber meets the road. Right? What choice are you going to make when nobody's around? Your church family's not around. Todd's not around. What decision will you make?
Right.
At that point, that's where it shows. When you make the decisions in them moments to say no, that's when you're beginning to get to the point to where you can stay clean.
It's becoming a value. It's no longer just a wish or a goal. It's a value in my.
And it becomes a lifestyle.
Right.
You just don't live that way anymore.
Right.
Right. So
good. Last question for you, Kevin. What has been your greatest blessing through all of this? There's struggles that come to us in life that we didn't create, right? We all have that. I always tell our guys, hey, life's tough enough without you creating more problems
right,
by decisions you're making. So, but even in this decisions that you have made, I have made, God can still use that to bring blessing into our lives.
Yes.
So what would you say has been the...
Well, I was thinking about this, and you see this mole on my forehead? It's not as big actually it's not as big as it used to be, Todd. It really isn't. And it's not as dark as it used to be. It used to be a really darker mole, and it was bigger. I don't get older I've gotten, maybe my head's gotten bigger.
Yeah, maybe your forehead got bigger.
My head's gotten bigger. And I was thinking about that when I was younger, and some of my friends would cut up about my mole on my head because it was there. I couldn't hide it. And I can't put a bandana over my head all the time and hide my mole, right? It's there. And I would be picked on. They called me Molehead. That was one of my nicknames. But over time, even the kids, when I got a little older, first thing they would see on me was my mole. They'd say, "What is that on your head?" So
we're cruel, aren't we? We're cruel.
Right, we're cruel. I began to accept and embrace that I had a mole on my head, Todd. I said, hey, I'm going to use this kind of for my advantage, if I could say it that way.
A mole man.
A mole, yeah. And I would, even with the kids in Awana, when I'd help in church, they would run up and say, "What is that on your head?" And I'd say, "This is my mole." And I'd say, "You want me to squirt mole juice on you?" And I would go like this and chase them all around like I was going to squirt it on them. And they would it was a lot of fun. So all that to say this, we all have moles in our lives, Todd.
That's good, yeah.
And some of us have them out in the open, right? My mole, I can't hide it. It's there. You see it. My addiction began to be, I couldn't hide it anymore.
Right.
I was exposed.
Yeah, it's out in the open.
It was out in the open. It's there. So I have a choice.
How many people are sitting in our churches with hidden addictions?
That's what I was getting at. The mole a lot of people's moles are what? Under their shirts. Nobody can see the moles unless they're at home. Maybe their family sees them. Their wife sees it, or her husband. The kids probably see them because, you sit around the house and you may have your shirt off. There's other moles, but they're usually hid to everybody else. So many people in our churches today are sitting around with all these moles that are hid. And what happens is, because they're not able to embrace them, they can't give God the glory for the moles in their life.
Wow,
so that's what I'm able to give God. That's my biggest blessing, is that I can do this today.
Right.
I can talk and speak about my testimony. Not that I am glad that I'm this way, that I've struggled, but to be able, for God to be able to use me and to share my struggles with others and be able to help them, it's been my biggest blessing. It really has. I mean, there's so many more, right? I could sit here forever and tell you all that, but the mole that God gave me, and we always want to say, God, just take away the addiction, right? Just get on. I've done that, man. I get on my knees, Lord, just zap me, take it away, and you won't have to worry about me anymore. Well, God says no to that to most people.
Yeah.
He wants to use the mole in your life so you can turn around and give him the glory for it.
And how many times does the Bible tell us that over in different ways, over and over?
It tells us over and over again, but we choose to hide the moles. I believe if people would just say in church, you know what, I'm tired of hiding this, I'm just going to come out and say, I need help. I need God to help me.
I had a guy one time in church, and I won't use names, but it just came to me. He came to me and he told me that he had a struggle in his life for years with strong addictions. And I asked him, I said, well, why won't you involve yourself in sharing this with some of our men? And he says, I won't use that to help others. I'm so ashamed of it, and I'm thinking, wow, God didn't allow you to go through this to live in shame. He says now you can use it to help other people.
Right, you have to.
And that's a blessing, because you get to pour into other people's lives. Yeah, even if it's based on some bad decisions that you made.
Right, because we all have the moles, right? So many of us want to hide them, though. And I'm not saying you should, air all your dirty on. There's some private things between you and God. I understand that. But in order for God to bless you, and you have to give God the glory for what he's done in your life. And if you can stand up and share your story with people, because you'll in churches, you even see it when you share an illustration or a story. I mean, the people that are usually sleeping in church, well, they perk up. And they start to listen, when usually they're over there, on their phone or half asleep. They're ready to go home. They're not. So they connect. And if that story I can tell because of my the way I've been crippled in life that can help another person, then that's my biggest blessing.
Yeah, your story, my story is God's glory. Exactly. And that's what he wants.
And we all have it.
That's right. Yeah. We all have it, and they're different. And some of you may be saying, well, I've never been addicted, so I don't have a story. You have a story.
You do.
You've had trials in your life. You've had struggles in your life. It might not be addiction. It might not be some of these. You may not have been in prison. Praise the Lord, you haven't been in prison. I had a guy tell me one time that he didn't think God could use him because he'd never been in prison.
That's not true.
God would rather you not be in prison.
Right. But it's not like you need to go through all these things so God can.
Right. Yeah. Let me go involve myself in a horrible lifestyle so that I can get out of it and come out and have a story.
Well, I tell folks all the time that, people in my Sunday school class, I got saved when I was 7, 8 years old, and I've never, your story is, I've never been that.
Right.
And I was like, thank the Lord. I mean, I wish I would have been in a Christian home. I wish my parents were Christians and raised me up through the biblical principles. I didn't know any of that. But man, I wouldn't be sitting here today, but that's not what happened to me.
That's right.
This is what happened to me.
Yeah.
And this is what I need to embrace, and I need to let God work through it so I can help others and give him the glory for it. That's what I wanted.
Man, thank you, Kevin. Man, it's been a blessing here today to have you. And I just, we've known Kevin a long, long time. Kevin and I, you would probably admit, we've had some, a couple of times we've had to butt heads over some.
When true friends sometimes have to,
Yep.
I appreciate you for being honest with me and telling me the truth when I needed to hear it. And we need people that way. We can't be, always wanting to tell people what they want to hear, right? Because I don't want them to be mad at me.
Yeah. I mean, we're Braves fans. Come on.
That's right. We're mad all the time. We lose all the time.
Even in the best season ever, we're American.
That's right. That's right. We're used to disappointment now.
Yeah. So, but again, like I say, if you need help, if you have people in your life that that need help and you don't know how to help them, contact us. Go to our website.
Yes.
Go to our website, www.nextstepmen.org, and we'll be glad to connect with you via email or Facebook or whatever way. If you have questions, and we can help direct you in the right place. Like we say, addiction is more than recovery. It's about finding and discovering your purpose, right, Kevin?
That's right.
And Kevin is doing that, and it's not easy. It doesn't mean that he never struggles now.
No, it doesn't.
That's not the case.
It's still, like I was going to say real quick earlier about the job that I lost when I was a Christian and fell hard and lost my job. It shows you how the devil is. That person that fired me that I thought would never speak to me again, 3 months later calls me up and says, "I want you to come back to work for me."
Yeah.
And because I was not thinking straight at the time, all I was thinking about was, well, I need more income. I got to pay the bill. I let the devil try to get me back in the snare. And I went back to that job knowing that was the last place I needed to be.
Yeah.
And I made a decision before, because I dabbled a little bit again, and I knew that it was back to the way it was going to be. And I said, I can't. And I left that job. I said, I can't. You got to make them decisions at the crucial moment.
Even if you had to take a pay cut, right? I had to
take a pay cut. Money didn't matter anymore. I had to work. I knew that as a father, a man, I need to be working, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to be vulnerable. You can't make yourself vulnerable like that. You've got to get away from that situation. So I did, and that was really, since then, things have really changed. I have been clean for a good long time, even though I don't count the days I'm not the one I've been clean to. It's been, several years now, and still not easy.
No.
I'm put in positions, that I have to make the choice to say no, or to say I'm not going to approach that person because I knew I smelled marijuana in their car, and I know them, and I could go over there and approach them, and I might could ask them for a joint. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
I'm not going to do that anymore.
Right.
No,
right.
I'm not going to do it. So
super. Well, thank you, Kevin. It's been a great discussion here with Kevin today. And again, like I said, if you need help, if you need advice, don't hesitate to look us up. Have a great day.